What is up, people? All right, so today my live stream is going to be, well, yeah, it's JavaScript, but it's maybe a little more unique. So what I've been working on is, one of the things that I've been working on is trying to get more of my data as my own. And so a few weeks ago, I got a Synology NAS, and it's been really awesome. That's a network attached storage device. And I've got a lot of stuff that I could talk about with this thing, but in general, one of the big challenges that I've had is getting all of the data that I have from various places, whether it's on Dropbox or external storage devices or whatever it is, and putting that onto this NAS in a, just like all together in one place. And then dealing with all of the duplication. So over the years, I've been like pretty good at backing my stuff up, but like I have backups from Dropbox. I'll like download the whole thing and put it on an external hard drive just in case, I don't know. And what that resulted in was me having just like a ton of copies of a ton of files. And so I ended up having these 3 different hard drives. They're like, I don't know, maybe a terabyte or half a terabyte each. Just these like really small, what are they? WD, whatever thing that is, my passport thing. I'm trying to see if it says how big these things are, but it doesn't look like it does. But yeah, so like 500 gigs or something like that on each one of these. And then all the data that I was backing up, like I didn't have my pictures, like not my entire photo library. That came from Google Photos. But then I was sharing my photo library with my wife, and when we did our Google Takeout and pulled all that down, we had a silly amount of duplicate photos. And so I wrote a script to help with that. And I know that there are tools that you can use that make it really easy to deal with these types of problems, but they like you can't write the kinds of rules that I need for my use case with those kinds of tools. So I created my own. And so that's what I'm going to show you. It's kind of hacky to make it all work. And I am using some tools and just kind of combining things together and stuff. It's kind of wild. So with all of that, let me just show you what I've got here. So this is my NAS. I desperately hope that I don't show you something that I'm not supposed to from a security standpoint. But one thing that I've got here, and actually here we can look at the file station, and it's under drives. So I copied all of the stuff from these 3 hard drives to this drives directory, put them into these individual folders. And then you'll notice that like we have backup year, month, day. And so I was like doing regular backups, and I wasn't so worried about duplication. I was just mostly like, let's just take all the stuff I've got, put it into this backup. And lots of that was pictures. Like this was back before I don't think Google Photos was a thing back with some of these. And even if it was, I wanted to keep my own copy. And so, yeah, I used, I just put everything into these backups. I had my video library on these things. But then I would get a new one. Yeah, see, I even have my mom's photos in here, which I think I'll ask her, but I don't think she needs me to keep those anymore. I don't even remember why I had those. But yeah, then more backups, my Microsoft Office product key from back in 2012. Yeah, don't know if I need that anymore. So just a ton of stuff. And then like lots of this stuff I actually do have like today, like most of the photos I had moved over to Google Photos, so they're already in my photos directory here. And so yeah, I don't need to like the big challenge here is that I just have a silly amount of duplication between these, and and I don't want to have to sort through it myself. And so luckily Synology has like a ton of packages that you can use. They're really awesome. And one of the packages is this storage analyzer, and you can generate reports on like the data that you have on your NAS. And one of the reports you can generate is duplicates report. So that had a report just finished. So here's that. Takes a second to load. Doo-doo-doo-doo. And there we go. So looks like I've got a ton of like my old school projects. That's probably where most of my files are coming from. But like this Java stuff, generated classes, I made, multiple copies of all this stuff. So it's a bit of a mess. I probably don't even need lots of this stuff too. But yeah, so it finds all the duplication between all these. Earlier, it was finding like movies that were duplicated or photos and stuff, and now I think it's chugging through my school projects right now. But yeah, so I can use this to generate a report, and then you can go through here and you're like, oh, okay, I want to keep that one, but I want these ones to be deleted. And then you can say action, delete, right? But that's not going to work because I have, between all these drives, I had something like 400,000 or maybe like 375,000 files. And I would say that most of those were, or almost all of those had some duplication somewhere. And so therefore, most of those needed to be deleted. Over half of those needed to be deleted. So I'm not going to click that button like 150,000 times or more. So that was not going to work. At first, actually, I didn't realize that's how long it was going to, or how many files I had that were going to be duplicates. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll go through this. But I got through the first page of these things, and I was like, no, that's not going to happen. So I dug around a little bit, and they store the reports in this Sino report directory here. So I've got this file mounted here. And then with each one of these reports, it has a bunch of info. Sorry, this is chugging because I'm doing stuff that I'm going to show you what I'm doing here in just a sec. But here, let's try this one. Well, there's a CSV file. Funny fact, it is not a CSV file. It's a TSV file. So it's tab delineated or tab separated file. But they called it a CSV because I don't know why. And so initially what I did was I take that CSV, upload it to Google Drive, and then download it as an actual CSV. And then I'd use the CSV parser to parse it and then do some more programming stuff that I'll show you in a sec. But I figured out a way to automate more of that stuff. So I guess I can't show it to you, but it's like there's a CSV file in this folder here. So let's see the code here for what I've got running. So at first what I had was pretty simple. It was, we've got the CSV parser. We create a, and it, like, okay, please don't judge me. I am at least using Prettier so it doesn't look ugly, but some of this code is no good. Yeah, so I would create a read stream, and this was a fun one to find out, that they were encoding this with UTF-16, not with UTF-8. And so like, yeah, that was such a pain. And that's why it worked really nicely to go to Google Drive and then bring it down, because Google Drive, when I brought it down, was UTF-8, and so I didn't have to worry about it. So the encoding has like messed me up big time on this. But anyway, so we create a read stream, then we do this pipe thing with the CSV parser. I wish that they didn't have that API, but they do, because I don't know how to do streams. It doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, so initially when I did the download of Google Drive, I didn't need this option, but now I'm just doing it directly on that file because I don't have time to upload and down. Oh, actually, here's a big problem or limitation that I had to overcome, and that is with these reports, I can only do 5,000 duplicate files. But remember, I have like 375,000 to check through, and most of those are duplicates. So yeah, just like I have to generate a bunch of these reports, and that's why you see all these right here. Yeah, so that was like a real pain. And I'll explain how I'm automatically generating these reports, because normally, okay, yeah, whatever. Normally, you have to right-click on this and click Generate Reports Now. And that's what I was doing for a while before I realized how many files I really had to do, which then I realized, oh, if I can only do 5,000 files at a time, and I've got 375,000 files, that's a lot of reports I need to generate. I don't want to do that. But I didn't realize that at the first. So anyway, we parse this, and we get our data. So like just the CSV file as a JavaScript object. And then some of the keys are kind of in a funny place and stuff. So I just, this is the thing, when you're writing these one-off scripts, you don't really care how ugly your code is or to try and do it the right way. You just like run through it as fast as you can and make things work. So we have one key, one of our headers. Actually, I think I can show you. Here we go. Here's what one of these files looks like. So you have a header with group, shared folder, file, size, modified time. So I don't care about any of those things. I just care about the file and the group. Yeah, then the group is just numbered. So these two files are duplicate. One is in music and the other one is in this kids MP3 folder that I have in my files directory. So I actually duplicated those intentionally to make it easier for me to sync my kids MP3 players with the files that I want on there, rather than having, I don't even know what I would do without duplicating the stuff. So, so I actually, there are several hundred files in there that are duplicates. And so I pulled that down and put it on my desktop. So, and then took it off of the NAS so that I wouldn't have this taking up the 5,000 slots that I have in my availability for the space on this report. So those are now gone. But anyway, this is what it looks like. And sometimes there will be, we've got sometimes 3 or 4 files that are duplicates. Sometimes it'll actually be a lot, especially with my school projects. I've got jQuery in there a bunch of times. And I decided that I don't care if those are deleted, and they shouldn't be, because I don't care about my school projects enough. My old school projects. So anyway, so this data by this time, and this is when I was filtering those out. I was like, I don't want to delete anything on my kids MP3. I could probably remove this now. Another thing, so like the report shows here, the report shows the path on the NAS, but I have the NAS files mounted to my Mac, and so I was running all of this on my Mac at first, and so that's what this was all about. Was let's just replace volume 1 with volumes so that it works. All these scripts work on my Mac, yeah, that tripped me up when I switched to running it directly on my NAS, and I'll show you that here later. But yeah, so then we push these onto each one of these rows onto our data array of results. And then I'm using Lodash group by to group the results by the group property here. And then I get the count and the files per group average. And then I log out there's so and so and so and so. Like, so it's right here. Boop, 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 boop. So there are 4,997 total files and 882 groups, giving about 5.67 files per group. And it's creating a script to delete 415 files. Wow. Glad I don't have to type that all the time. So yeah. I just lost it. Right. What the devil just. All right, there you are. Weird. Okay, so that's what I want. Okay, sweet. So that's I just logged that out for my help or my own benefit here. And if there are fewer than 500 results, then I want to know, and I don't want to run this automatically. I'm just going to have it stop, and then I'll go through and run that last one manually. Yeah, because like I don't know what could happen at the end here, so I don't really care. And it's easy to do. So then I generate commands so that we can create this delete script, where here I have a comment at the top that says the group number. This is a comment, a hash thing. This is a Synology 10119, I think. 10119 plus, I think is what it is. So yeah, for the first group, this is the file we're going to preserve. And these are the files we're going to delete. And so it just generates this like 6,000 line long thing. And then at the very end, I have it list how many files are left in that drive, because for a while I had my commands wrong and it wasn't actually deleting anything every time. So I want to see that number going down every time, which is why I listed out. So this number used to be up in the 300,000s, and now it is a lot less. So this is nice. Okay, cool. So yeah, so we write that those commands. Well, okay, so I kind of skipped over some of this stuff. So if the group length is less than 2, then we'll just return no commands for this. And that doesn't happen anymore because I pulled the kids MP3 stuff off of the NAS. So I don't think I need that anymore. But just in the event that we have a group that only has one item, then it's not actually a group, and so we don't need to do any commands there. And then I make a keeper. So we have these searches, and the searches are kind of interesting, where I need to decide which one of the duplicates I'm going to keep. And this is why I can't just use some off-the-shelf tool, because none of them have this kind of like way for me to say, I prefer the files that are in these directories or whatever. So here I can say if the file starts with photo or Plex library or music or homes or in my backup. And then I also added the external hard drives, like the specific ones. So I could say I'm going to prefer the ones that are on this more recent external hard drive than the ones that are on the older one. And so that just gives me a way to say these are the, like, once you find one of the files that is in one of these directories, then that's the one we're going to keep, and the rest of them can be deleted. So that, where are we? Yeah, so that's what that is. We're just going to say find the first file that matches this search, and if there is a result, so if one of the files matches that first or that search, then that's our keeper, and we'll just break out of this loop. And then if none of the files matches those search for one reason or another, then we'll just grab the first one, and then the rest of them we'll delete. So we separate the keeper from the deleted, and then we make a comment line for the keeper just so that I can see that in the output, and then spread out lines for each of the deleted, and then join that by an empty or by a new line character, and then for each one of these groups, we're just gonna 2 new line characters join those. And then I print that all out into that delete script file. And then before I actually run it, I check to see that there isn't more than 1,000 files per group. Initially I had this as 10, but basically if groups was undefined, or a group was undefined, that happened a couple of times, especially when my encoding was wrong. So I probably could get rid of this now, but when the encoding was wrong, then we tried to do this group by the group property, and it was undefined on all of them. So we got all of the files would go into that single group, and so then we'd have like something like 4,000 files in a single group. And so this line is just to help avoid that. And so then I can go take a look at the output script file and see what the heck is going on there. But then we actually run that bash script, and then we log out the result, and then we have this working thing. So I'll explain that later, but that was like kind of the initial, it's always pretty much worked like this, where I generate a bunch of scripts and then I run all of those. I just got a text from my wife. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'll be right back. It's not a huge thing, but it's kind of a huge thing. So I'll be right back. Oh, wow. Okay, so my wife kind of hurt herself working with something. Anyway, she's okay. But here we are. We're back. So the next thing that we did here was yeah, so what was the problem that I came up against the next? Oh, so I was like manually sorry, I have something in my teeth. Oh, this is strange. It should have another directory right here called CSV. There we go. And then in the CSV directory, man, this thing is bothering me. No, you can't see it, but okay. In the CSV directory, there is a zip file. And yeah, it's still working here trying to show me this stuff. I don't know why it's so slow right now. Maybe it's because I'm running this stuff, actually. That's probably why. But there's a zip file. That's what this storage analyzer generates for me. And the storage analyzer just does like an MD5 hash of the file. So yeah, there we go. And so I would have to extract that and then put it to Google Drive and then download it. And I was like, I'm going to get rid of that whole process. And speed that up. My plan was, at this point, I still didn't realize the magnitude of the job that I was taking upon myself. And so I was just like, I don't want to have to go to Google Drive all the time. I can right click this, hit generate report, and then run my little script on that again. But I don't want to have to, convert it from a CSV to a TSV and like extract it and all that. I just want that to be part of what the script does. Once I have a report, then I just run the script and it makes all the magic happen. So, so that was my goal. And I looked around and found this unzipper thing, which of course is another streams thing because nobody can do normal stuff. No, just kidding. Like streams are really important, especially when you're memory constrained and stuff. But I'm not memory constrained, so I was like bothered by that. But because these files are very small. But yeah, so I tried a ton of things, but eventually, yeah, I'm just trying to see if I still have that code. No. Eventually, I was able to get this bit of code, which allows me to extract that. And actually, I was able to extract it into a string of memory, just hanging out in memory, which would be awesome. And then I could just pass that to the CSV parser. But because the encoding was wrong, there was no way for me that I could find to make this unzipper utility extract it into UTF-8. And so yeah, it was a big nightmare. So anyway, I just now I'm using the extract function and save it to an actual file. And then I call generate script with that file path and then use this encoding option so that we get the right encoding for this. Real pain. Yeah, so that solved that problem. I was able to unzip it and then read that file, run all the rest of my script. And then around that time, it's like, maybe I should find out how many files I've got here that I'm going to be working with. And yeah, so I know that I'm going to get comments and things from people saying, hey, there's this tool, but if your tool can't allow me to specify the priority of which files to keep around, which I doubt that it can, then writing a script for it was just the best way. So I know that there are bash utilities and other tools that you can use, but nothing that I can think of has such a simple way to, or like a surgical way for me to say which file should I give preference to. So anyway, yeah, so this was working well, and then I found out how many files I had, and I was like, okay, I've got to make it so I don't have to right-click on this thing and hit generate report all the time. I need to get this report automatically generated. So this is where things got kind of interesting. I dug around in the in my NAS directory structure, and I found where the files for this application reside, but I couldn't find anything in there where I could like execute something or like any sort of CLI or anything like that. And so that was a real bummer. But then I was like, hey, I wonder if I could just execute the same request that's being executed when I hit generate reports, so that I can make this, like I can script this. I'll just curl it. And so that's what I did. I popped open the DevTools. I went to my network, and then anytime anything happens on this NAS in this web UI, you get this entry.cgi. And I think that's just their REST, or not REST. It's like a probably some technology that I'm not familiar with, but this is just how they communicate literally everything that happens in the UI, and every user interaction, everything, all is happening with this entry CGI web API thing. And here at the bottom, it has it submits this as a form, and it I probably better not tell you where my NAS is hosted publicly to the internet. Otherwise, you can use my Synode token, and that would be bad. Yeah, I'll be invalidating that token pretty soon. But yeah. So anyway, this is just how you interact with the apps. And so I went through here. I right-clicked. I hit generate. I found the entry that interacted with that thing, and then I just right-click it, hit copy as curl, and then I just pasted it into this kickoff report thing, and it worked. I was so shocked. I just ran kickoff report, and it started a report. So that was cool. And I was like, sweet, this is going to work really nicely. So just at the end of every, after the generate script stuff. Oh, and by the way, for some weird reason, I think it's this extract archive, the unzipper thing. For some reason, I actually never get this console log all done, which is super weird. Like, I don't know why, but it never like actually finishes this whole function. And so that's why I don't just say, okay, let's wait for this thing, then wait for this thing, and then run the script. And then like it's not organized nicer because, well, first off, it's a one-off script, so who cares? But secondly, I couldn't because the program just stopped. I don't even know. It's weird. Yeah, so I got the archive to extract, and then I generated the script. And then when the script is done generating, I added a final command to this to run that kickoff report. So I was like, sweet, and it was working pretty well. But the problem was that it was just taking a really long time, and I couldn't figure out why it was so slow. So I thought, well, okay, and my computer is like freaking out because it's super like. Well, it's not really intensive, but it was just like the fan was on. I was like, why is this so hard? So I thought, well, I bet if I run this locally on the NAS, because I do have Node installed on the NAS, it's Node 8 because like one of the apps that I have installed is using Node. I can't remember which. Yeah, so I have that running on the NAS. I could just run this locally on the NAS. And that was like way faster. I guess communicating, even RMRF, or like the RMF stuff to delete files, even that communication is pretty slow across the network for some reason. And remember, this is like mounted, so I'm not doing like some rsync whatever nonsense here. This is just mounted drives, but it's just slow. And so I was like, sweet, okay, I'll just run this on the NAS. Well, when I did that, I ran into a problem where the NAS could not run this kickoff report script that curls. As soon as I would curl from the NAS, so it just basically curl back to itself, it would kick me off. It would log me out, invalidate my token, and I'd have to log in again. That took me a while to figure out like that it was the NAS was the problem. And I tried like localhost and whatever, and yeah, like it would definitely communicate, but it would kick me off for doing that. I don't know why. So, that was unfortunate. I was like, well, dang. So if I do it locally on my machine, I have to keep my machine turned on and it has to be running this thing forever. I just want to run it on the NAS, and it's slow. I just want the speed of running this directly on the machine. So here's what I did. The kickoff report thing is actually really simple. It doesn't take a lot of time because it's just like it's posting a message and then the server's like, okay, I'll start the report. And so that happens really quickly, regardless of where I am, whether it's running on the NAS or locally on my machine. And so what I do here is I totally skipped over. So I tried this Chokidar thing. That was a nightmare. Chokidar is like the de facto standard for or for watching directories. And I remember every time that I'd ever done Chokidar, I would always get too many too many of my handler calls called, and so I have a bunch of stuff in here to say, hey, are you calling me for the latest report, or is this like something else? And then I had to throttle it for 1,000 milliseconds, and it was just a big pain. So Chokidar did not work very well. And so what I did instead was I just said, hey, let's set this interval. Every second we'll check, we'll get a path to the latest report zip file. And if that's different from the current one that we're working on, then we know we have a new one. So I'm going to call into extract archive to go ahead and go through that whole process. And so now we're basically just polling on the NAS in that directory, like, hey, do you have a new report? Do you have a new report? Do you have a new report? I already did that one. Let's do the next one. And that works out nicely because if I miss a report, then the next report that'll be generated will include all the same stuff as the current report or the last report did. So it's not a big deal if there's something that doesn't work out too well in that regard. So anyway, so I have this just constantly checking for reports, and I have that running on the NAS because that's the part that needs to be faster for the NAS. And then on my machine locally, I have, because my machine is the only thing that can kick this off programmatically with that curl, I have this script where I every second check and say, hey, well, I'll show you that in a second. Runs bash kickoff report. So every second it runs bash kickoff report unless there's currently a report being generated. And I know that by if there's a folder with the temp prefix on it, which is nice. Thank you so much for making it easy for me to know whether there's a existing report or a report being generated. So here's the other kicker is I don't want to generate a report while a bunch of files are being deleted. That takes about 8 seconds or so for those files to be deleted. And so I need to wait until all those old files are deleted before I generate a new report. Otherwise, we're going to have some of the old files in this new report, and that'd be a waste of resources. So to communicate between these two computers, we're going to use the file system as a communication path. And so what I do is I create a folder called working when we get started, and then I delete that working folder when we finish. And so in here, every second, it's going to check, hey, is this working folder or file, does it exist? And if it does, then we're not going to do anything because we know that we're working. If it doesn't, then I'm going to determine whether there's already a report being generated. And if there's not, then we'll go ahead and kick off another report. And that actually works out pretty nicely. So that's kind of how that all works. It's a bit of a nightmare, a bit of a mess, but at the end of the day, I've got, just in the time that we were talking, it's like 20,000 files have been deleted since we started talking. And that's like all of these beautiful external hard drives that honestly terrified me this whole time. I'm like, I'm going to lose all these important documents or whatever, my old school reports or whatever, because I don't have these backed up anywhere. Well, as soon as I get all of this squared away and delete all of the duplicate files and stuff, then I can start backing it up with Backblaze, which is how I back up my NAS, and it'll be accessible anywhere in the world, which is nice. And then I can just move on with my life. So anyway, we're still chugging along. We probably are going to run for the rest of the day, honestly. And then hopefully by sometime by this evening, it'll work. But yeah, so I've got, this is running locally on my machine. And every now and then, it runs through this to generate a new report. Probably the longest single thing through all this process now is generating that report. That takes a while. And it's just unfortunate that I can only do 5,000 at a time. Because if I could do like all of them, then maybe, yeah, sure, I'd have a giant CSV file, but I'd be able to churn through that thing and generate the remove file thing, and that would just be nice. But yeah, anyway, so we just kicked off another report, and we've got this temp directory creating that report. This thing's running, and this is going to take maybe a minute. And then once that's done, then this script will be like, oh, there's a new report. Let me extract that and find out which files I need to delete, and then delete all those. And then once I'm done, then this thing's like, oh, you're done. Let me kick off another report. So that's how that all works. Kind of fun. One of the things that I just really, really love about being a software engineer is the ability to take these problems that I have that are real world problems and solve them with software. It is just so awesome. And yeah, so on that note, I actually wrote updated a blog post that I've written in the past, and it's going to go out to my subscribers today. So you can go read it on my, or it's going to go out tomorrow, but you can read it on my blog. It's an argument for automation. And I don't talk about this one. I talk about my process for creating a new blog post. But there are so many things that we can automate. And this specific case of automating deleting duplicate files, that was absolutely like necessary for being successful in getting this done. But sometimes you may not be convinced that it's worthwhile automating. And it just occurs to me that I didn't mention something in here that is really important, but you can go read through this. And one thing that I wanted to mention in here that I'll probably add right now is you do things more when it's automated. Like, so I automated getting my computer set up for live streaming, and I automated having like, and not just software automated, but like I set up my office so that it would be easier to get going on live streaming. And so now I am live streaming more because it just takes less time. It's not just about like, I have more time and so now I can live stream more. No, it's like I can get into live streaming mode faster, and so I'm like, it's a smaller hump to get over to get live streaming. That's just an example. Same thing with recording videos and all that. So anyway, hopefully this was sort of kind of interesting, and I'm just going to leave this running. We're down to 159,000 files, so we've still got a ways to go, but certainly faster than me right-clicking that thing. But yeah, thanks for watching. I think I'm going to jump out, and I hope you all have a marvelous day. I'm just going to look at this thing. We still got, oh my goodness, so many generated files for my school projects. I wonder if that's like most of them now. It's just all my old school projects. Ay caramba. Yeah, well, it'll be good to get rid of all those. And when I'm all done, I'll go run the script that's like a find command to delete empty folders. And then it'll just be way easier to find things and put it all together in one place. So, all right, cool. Well, I hope you all have a good day. Thanks for tuning in. Peace out.